What's up, curious youngsters? Every day, without realizing it, we consume hundreds of products. And while some are quite obvious in how they were made, others have a very curious process behind them. And while many people don't stop to think about the complex process behind the yogurt they're eating or the soap they're using, other curious ones, like Mr. Curiosity, need the answer to everything. For this and much more, these are 10 things you consume daily and didn't know how they are made. 1. Tabasco sauce. Depending on the country where you live, you will have a greater or lesser consumption of hot sauces. Tabasco sauce is one of the most well-known sauces worldwide. To produce this intense red sauce, millions of small but powerful chilies or peppers need to be harvested. Tabasco peppers originate from the Mexican state of Tabasco, hence their name. Let's continue with the process. Once we have our little Tabasco chilies, these receive a shower of salt and are turned into a large paste through a press. The spicy paste will then be stored in wooden barrels similar to wine and left to rest for an impressive 3 years. Yes, this rest is needed for the brand's unique flavor. After 3 years, the barrels are open, and that Tabasco paste is going to be mixed with a good amount of vinegar to make a sauce. And now, this is placed in small bottles, ready to flavor our food. 2 balloons. Every time we have a party or birthday, we usually find the colorful balloons that decorate the event. But did you know how they make them? The first step is to obtain latex, which is the sap from rubber trees found in nature. Once we have the latex, it is put into large mixers, where it receives a pigment that determines the color of the balloons. After mixing for a few minutes, sulfur and zinc oxide are added to give the balloons more elasticity and resistance. With the mixture ready, we move on to the next stage, where a set of ceramic molds shaped like light bulbs will be responsible for shaping the balloons. The molds are dipped into the pre-prepared mixture, forming the balloon's skin. The bottles are then heated in an oven for a few minutes to strengthen them. Finally, the nozzle where the bottles will be inflated is formed using rollers. Finally, they pass through another oven that hardens them completely. And after some tests and stamping a design on the balloons, they are deflated and packaged. 3 sausages loved and at the same time hated by many people. The sausages managed to become one of the most famous junk foods in all of history. Served in ponchos, hot dogs, or frankfurters, they quickly satisfy hunger. But do you know how they're made? The first thing that happens in the factory is that depending on the type of sausage that is going to be produced, different types of meat will be used. Pork, chicken, or turkey can be used. Once the meat is already ground, different seasonings such as salt, sugar, and pepper will be added. While being mixed, the mixture will receive a few liters of water to achieve a more homogeneous consistency. Now, if this not very attractive mixture, it will be introduced into artificial casings made from cellulose, which will keep the sausage in place. The next step will be to introduce the thousands of sausages into an oven, where they will cook for a few minutes. Lastly, a machine removes the casing from the sausages. To complete the factory tour and be packaged, it's better to eat a lettuce, Timmy. 4 plastic bags. Even though plastic bags have to disappear due to the huge impact they have on the environment, they are still being produced. And do you know how they are made? The first thing that is needed are millions of small plastic beads that arrive at the factory, which can be new or recycled. Now, these tiny but sturdy beads are passed into a large container where they melt at about 230 degrees 100 through a cold air injection. They are going to come out of the machine in the shape of a large bag. The tube is then flattened and wound onto coils. Now, these huge rolls of plastic bags go to the printing part where they will receive the customer's design, and then they will be sealed with a hot iron, and they will be given the necessary shape with thermal blades. Then they are left to dry and are ready to be dispatched. 5 yogurt is one of the healthiest foods there is, and yet it's full of germs. Yogurt is made using good bacteria that are beneficial for the body. So how exactly is yogurt produced? Even with all the technology and the most modern machines we can have today, a fairly basic process is still used, along with a fairly old recipe. In order to produce yogurt, we need a mixture of natural milk along with powdered milk and cream, which, as we know, is the fatty part of the milk. Although we also have to know that those light or low-fat yogurts do not have this cream. The whole mixture is brought to high temperatures inside containers in order to form a homogeneous yogurt. Simultaneously remove all excess bacteria. The mixture then goes to large fermentation containers where additional live bacteria are added to give it the familiar texture and flavor. Finally, after a few days of fermenting the yogurt, it is placed in different containers and ready. Roquefort, one of the most delicate and interesting cheeses we can consume, is a true delight. But how do they make this cheese with mold edible and not intoxicate us? Roquefort cheese or blue cheese? It's going to start its process on some farm in the world that has a few sheep. These animals, in addition to giving us wool a few months a year, can be milked and managed to give us milk for our cheeses. After the milk passes quality control at the plant, it is placed in a container and mixed with a small amount of rennet. This animal-derived substance will help the milk start to coagulate and lumps begin to form. After a few minutes, these pieces of solid milk will be transported by a conveyor belt to an area where they will receive a shower of mold. A previously cultivated fungus called Penicillium roqueforti is added to the cheese. Then, the curdled milk with fungus is placed in molds the size of buckets that will be cooled until the entire mixture is solid and all the liquid is removed. The cheese is removed from the mold and covered with a layer of sea salt, protecting it and enhancing its flavor. And finally, all that's left is to wait. These cheese molds will be placed in special chambers where the degree of humidity and temperature is just perfect to be able to develop the mold in a certain way, and so that the cheese does not spoil. Thanks for the Siete Sheep cheese. Soap. Whenever we wash our hands, we typically use soap, which comes in various shapes, colors, and scents. But then how is it made? The first thing you need is animal or vegetable fat, which is going to be mixed with sodium nitroxide, and a few liters of boiling water to start making a mixture. Then this is going to be spread over a metal roller where it will solidify to then go to a grinder. At this point, the pieces of soap are cut again into tiny pieces to be deposited in another mixer. Now the color and fragrances are added to achieve the expected soap. And after a few minutes, the soap will go through some bar-shaped molds to end up being cut by some blades, obtaining small loaves of soap. And finally, these can receive some design through some mold, or they will go directly to be packaged. 8 needles. For thousands of years, people have been using needles to sew different materials. While they were once made from sharp bones, modern sewing needles are typically crafted from thin steel wire, which is going to be untangled from a spool and put into a machine that is going to straighten it. Then using blades, it cuts the wire to the length of 2 needles. The pencils then pass through a grinder that files the tips and gives them an edge, shaping them into pencil points. This long wire is flattened by a press and receives 2 holes for the thread to pass through later, creating 2 needles that will be separated by a blade. Now, these needles pass through an oven where they are heated to very high temperatures and then cooled quickly, achieving maximum resistance with this thermal shock. The needles are then coated with glycerin oil and an abrasive material, so that after a few days of vibrating in a machine, needles with a smooth and shiny surface are obtained. The needles are then washed, dried, and ready for packaging. Be careful with your fingers. 9 cider. Most alcoholic beverages use grains as the main ingredient, but in this case, we are going to use apples. When it's already apple harvest season, a tractor is going to take care of shaking the poor trees to drop the fruits, and another truck is going to pick them up to then take them to the processing plant. In this place, the fruits are washed and selected to go to a crusher, which will end up turning our fruits into a big puree. Puree that will go through some presses in charge of obtaining the best apple juice. To turn apple juice into an alcoholic drink, an additional ingredient must be added. And that something is yeast and other ingredients that after a few weeks of fermentation will start to give alcohol and a unique flavor to the cider. When it is ready, it will be bottled and transported to different places. 10. Chocolate. Perhaps chocolate is one of the most addictive and most loved foods around the world. But did you know how it's made? It all starts in the cocoa plantations located in different tropical places on our planet. That's where the cocoa pods are harvested, which contain the cocoa seeds inside. These seeds are going to be fermented for a few days, and then they are going to be dried in the sun. After cleaning, the grains are sent to the processing plant to go through a machine, which removes its shell to only keep the inside. The cocoa beans will then be roasted to release their flavor and color before being ground into a large cocoa paste. After liquefying the paste a few more times and adding sugar, it is ready to be solidified into a large chocolate bar. And as we know, the more sugar we add, the sweeter the chocolate we will get, but the less natural it will be. Before I go, let me say hello to some subscribers. A huge hello to Anonymous and another greeting to Michael Quignone. Another small hello to Jesse Angelo Cruz and a big greeting to Weedcap Ken. I also send a big greeting to Alex Toff, and finally, I send a big greeting to Alex Crack. Another little hello to Luis Oscar, and the last greeting goes to Alberto Aced. Leave a like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Don't forget to share the channel too. More kisses. Mr. Curiosity. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss any new videos. I am Mr. Curiosity.